Hi again everyone, welcome on this very wet day. Today we're going to be doing some fabric applique, and I'm going to go on a little bit later. I'm going to make my fabric applique into a little duffel bag, but the first part of it today is just showing you how to cut the fabrics and how to apply them. First of all, I'm going to show you the kinds of things that you need to do this project. You will need some scraps of fabric in different colours, scissors. These are nice big and very sharp scissors, and I also have some pinking shears here which could be useful. A couple of markers and a pen, a rubber, some card, paper and drawing equipment to draw out your shapes, some paper called Bondaweb, and this comes from any kind of fabric or craft supplies. It's a means of applying fabric to fabric through ironing the fabric on, and it's almost foolproof in terms of getting a good result. You also need some kind of backing fabric. This could be anything, but it's a nice plain cream colour, and it's quite smooth. Smooth fabric's good for actually ironing your pieces onto because it takes the fabrics really well. And as I'm going to be making a bag, I've got two pieces the same size. And I've also got some sugar paper, scrap sugar paper, for when I'm doing the ironing, and I'll show you that in a little while. So the first thing we're going to do is decide what kind of pattern we're going to make on the fabric. And I've decided I'm going to go with flowers and hearts, because I'm going to give this little bag to my my little niece, and I think she'd really like something like this. So I'm imagining this is going to be the shape of the bag, and I'm just going to place the pieces in a way that I think will look interesting. There's a couple of little shapes there for leaves as well. So I'm only just kind of getting an idea about what I might do at the moment. I'm going to keep it well away from the sides of the fabric here, because this is going to be sewn as a hem. So if you're going to be making a bag, make sure you give yourself a bit of room for the hem. If you're just making it into a picture, you'll probably still need to hem it as well, because this will have a frayed edge. So that's the shapes I'm going to use. They were just cut out of ordinary plain white card. I drew the shape and then cut it out with scissors. The next step would be to decide what coloured fabrics I want to use. I like the idea of the pinks and a little bit of the yellow. For the flowers, obviously the pinks for the hearts. So I'm going to show you first of all how this is done. This is the front of the fabric, this is the back, it's kind of a bit lighter. I lay down the shape. Always when you're cutting things out, go towards the edge of the fabric. Don't put it right in the middle, because if you cut that out, you can't really do much with the leftovers. Whereas if you lay it towards the side of the edge, you've always got this bit here that you can cut another shape out of. So I lay it down. I'm going to use my lighter kind of blue marker here and just draw around the outside. Okay. And I have a choice then. I'm going to be using the straight edge scissors. You could use the pinking shears, which will give it a little ruffled edge. The main reason I'm using the straight edge is because some of my shapes are quite complicated, and they would be difficult to cut with the pinking shears. And don't worry that it will fray. This fabric is pure cotton, so it doesn't fray too badly. Some fabrics might fray more, but when you use the Bondaweb, it creates a nice firm edge, so usually it's okay. That's my first heart. Once again, I think this one doesn't have a front and back, so I'm just going to throw it down like that. And when I'm cutting this out, you'll see I'm cutting absolutely on top of the line. And the reason I do that is because you don't want too much of that blue line to show. Now we'll be turning the fabric over, so you shouldn't see too much of it, but because I'm using a dark pen just so that you can see what I'm doing, some of that blue, as you can see, is showing through. I'm just going to cut a little bit further in and line. Now if I were doing this and I wasn't doing it as a video, I'd probably use a pencil, because a pencil won't go through the fabric, but it'll be difficult for you to see against the fabrics here. I'm going to go for the yellow and make one of the flowers, perhaps the biggest flower. I'm not sure if you can see that very well because it's pencil, but I'll put that out. Some people feel when they're cutting very fiddly things out, they prefer a smaller pair of scissors. That's fine too. It just depends which ones you find you can handle the most easily. I tend to find a larger pair of scissors that's really nice and sharp are the best option. Once you get used to cutting things out, even a large pair of scissors can be used in quite a delicate way. But you get a nice smooth line with a large pair of scissors, and perhaps it's a little bit easier to achieve that with a large pair than a small pair. Flip that over. You can see you've got the shape of the flower. Now, what can be nice with the flowers is you might want to create some kind of a centre to the flower. I'm just going to open that up a little bit there so I can see that you're kind of losing the shape of the petal there. It's a bit better. So with tiny little scraps like this, you could cut a circle for the centre. Just doing this by eye, obviously. Okay, you might even want to put another smaller circle in the middle, but that's totally up to you. These are things that you might decide going along. Another thing you do is cut out lots of little heart shapes. You could do that. I might just do that so you can see what that would look like. I cut out a small heart. Now obviously again, I'm doing this by eye. The more you do these kinds of things, the easier it becomes to see how it would be. So you're kind of making it up as you go along. Having a bit of a basic plan is always a good idea. I like these fabrics that are made through a process of tie-dye, even though they're made commercially. It's just something so nice about having a pattern which is random rather than necessarily a printed pattern, because every single piece you cut is going to be slightly different in colour, which really appeals to me. There's something about the, yeah, just using things that are random rather than say always printed patterns with dots or flowers on them. Something like that for your main flower. So as you see, I haven't cut all the pieces yet. I'm going to stop there and I'm going to cut out the rest of the pieces, and then we'll come back to you and show you how to apply the binder web. Hi again, back again to show you how to apply the binder web. We've moved rooms now, so I hope the change in the light isn't too much. These are the pattern pieces that I've cut out and the basic way layout that I think would look nice. And I have to apply each of these pieces separately to the binder web. All has to be done separately. When you buy your binder web, it comes by the metre, so you buy it by the metre. It's about €5 a metre, I think, but it can go quite a long way if you're careful with it. Now I usually do this in small pieces, so I'm going to cut a couple of squares, just roughly. This doesn't have to be done, you know, perfectly, because this technique has an amazing way of just working with whatever shape you cut. So just to make it more manageable, I'm going to cut a couple of smaller pieces. Now, when you look at your binder web, you'll feel that there are two sides to the paper. One is quite smooth and the other side feels kind of rough, and the rough side has glue on it. So you need to know which side of paper you're working with before you apply it to the fabric. So this is the way it's done. You take the piece of fabric you want to apply the, actually I'm going to use this one because you can see it better because it's got a reverse side. So you put your colourful side, your proper side, down. Then you put the rough side, which is the gluey side, over the top of it. But it must completely cover. It doesn't matter that it's going, you know, it's not the same shape at the moment, but it must completely cover your piece. You take your iron and iron firmly over the top. Now this iron was set at a medium heat. I know everybody's irons are slightly different, but you won't want it to be at a cool heat. And you can see that it's sticking to the paper as well. That's the reason why I put a piece of rough paper down, because otherwise it would be sticking to your ironing board cover. And I've just left a little bit there to lift up. Now, I'll leave it cool down for a minute, just a little bit. Pull off the paper and you'll be able to feel that this glue has now transferred to the back of the fabric. So that piece is done. I'm going to lay it to one side, and that piece is done. Throw away any small pieces because you don't want to end up trying to use the same piece again. When you start again with the next piece of fabric, don't put it down anywhere where this glue has already gone, because you'll find that the yarn will pick it up. So once again, take a piece of the fabric that you cut, lay it down with the right side down, and lay the paper on top with the rough glued side down. Take your yarn and iron over the top, leaving a little bit at the corner so that you can pull the paper off. You need to go quite firmly. You want to make sure that the whole of that is stuck on properly. There we go. And I always leave it to cool just a little bit. You'll find that's actually quite hot, that paper. So one, you don't want to touch it when it's really hot, and two, I find that it's more likely to have glued properly if you just leave it to set just for a minute. Still very, very hot. Pull off the paper. If you can see, I don't know how well the video shows it, sometimes little bits of this are on the side. This is done but really, really well, but sometimes bits of the gluey stuff are still sticking out. Just use your finger and thumb to go around the outside to pull off any bits of glue that are sticking out, okay? I'm going to put that on one side, and I'm going to put my used piece of paper on one side as well. Now you can see I'm already beginning to use up quite a lot of this page. So this is going to be the last part I can probably safely do. So I'm going to lay down 3 pieces together, which is possible when you've got smaller pieces. Again, feel for the rough side of the paper, lay it over the top, and take it on. Now what you want to avoid is going over those gluey bits that you've already used with the arm, because you don't want glue on your arm. So try and keep the yarn away from anything where you've already ironed it, and then this piece of paper can be thrown away afterwards. The leaves are done. Put that to one side. I don't know why the sugar jar is there, but it is. And your leaves. Okay, so I'm going to leave it now. I'm going to carry on doing all of those pieces, and we'll come back and show you how to then apply them to your bag. Okay, so we're ready now for the next stage of making the applique bag. You can see now that I've laid out all the pieces in the pattern that I'd like them to be in. I've made sure that there's plenty of space around the outside of the layout so that I can do my hemming. And I've also made sure that every piece has been applied with the Bondweb glue, and you'll be able to feel it because it feels kind of smoother. You think it would feel sticky, but it doesn't. It actually feels smoother. That piece is easy to see because there's a back and a front. Other pieces like that, the colour is the same, so you have to use your fingers to make sure that you've got the right side, the gluey side down. So look for it to be slightly shiny and smoother. So everything's laid down. Every single one of these pieces the glue had to be applied separately. So all these little tiny pieces had to be done separately as well, otherwise they wouldn't glue down in position. So then I use the yarn, again on a medium heat. And you don't use the yarn in the usual way where you'd be going backwards and forwards like that. You're pressing down and lifting up. Because if you were to move the yarn, you'd move the pattern pieces underneath you. So you lay the yarn down, press down, move it along, press down, move it along, press down. So it's just applying even pressure all the way across your design. And it really is as simple as that. Okay, now on the packet of the Bondweb, it says that you can wash it and it won't fall off. I haven't actually tested that out yet, but I believe it probably would last for a few washes. However, people who do applique would usually finish off by either with a blanket stitch or with a sewing machine with a zigzag stitch, going all the way around the outsides of these pattern pieces. I'm not going to do that, not because I think it wouldn't look lovely, I'm sure it would, but it's a long process, a long job, and I don't think I need to do it with this project. So I'm actually quite happy to leave it as it is. So that's the front of the bag. You have another piece then for the back of the bag. And the next process will be sewing the 2 pieces together and adding a drawstring, which will make a lovely pyjama bag or underwear bag or overnight bag, or even just for collecting your scrap fabrics for your next applique project. Okay, thank you. So now I'm going to show you the last part of this project. We're going to make this applique into a little drawstring bag. For this project then you need a second piece of fabric the same size. You turn the one over so you've got the applique side facing inwards. Match up the pieces and then pin them together. I'm pinning a little bit further, oh dear, loads of needles, a little bit further in rather than right at the edge, because I want to draw a line using a ruler, so as a guideline for where I'm going to stitch. Okay, my two pieces joined together with the pins, and then I'm going to take a ruler and a pencil and draw a line probably just around 1 centimetre in from the edge. You can probably do this by eye so you know this is what your line where you're going to stitch. Now this is not very correct sewing. The way I was taught obviously was to tack the two pieces together, but I use this as a bit of a shortcut so you don't have to do the tacking. As long as you've got plenty of pins in place, you should be fine. As you can see, the line that I've drawn goes all the way to the top, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure in 2.5 centimetres from the top, and then a further 2.5 centimetres from this side and from this side. So this is the opening of your bag. From the top, 2.5 centimetres in, and a further 2.5 centimetres. The reason I've drawn that, to make it more obvious, is that this section I'm going to leave open, which means when you do your sewing, you sew this little bit here, and then you leave a gap and you sew all the way around and leave a gap here and sew the last bit. And the reason for doing that is so you can thread your ribbon through at the end. So I'm going to sew that now. I'm using a sewing machine. You can just as easily do hand sewing. I love hand sewing, but it takes a bit of time, either with a running stitch or a back stitch. Either one is fine. If you've got a sewing machine or somebody who knows how to use a sewing machine, that's the quickest way. So now you can see those little markers are really helpful because I can see them sticking out. It means I know exactly where to start my sewing. When you come close to the corner, take out any needles. And try and keep, when you're doing a corner, try and keep the needle down as you turn the corner. It'll be much easier for you to turn the fabric that way. Okay, just going to trim those little bits off. Now, if you really hate sewing and you don't have a sewing machine, you could get away with gluing that together. If you used a strongish glue, like some kind of a fabric glue, you could use a PVA glue. You could probably even use Bostik, but that would do it for a while. Wouldn't be quite as neat, but it would still do a good job and it would last you. I'm just going to snip off the corners at an angle like this, so that when we turn the bag inside out, there's not a load of fabric bunched up in the corners. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to press open the seam there. So you can see I've got a little gap where I left the opening. I'm just going to press open that seam there. This makes it a little bit easier when I come to do the ribbon. I'll do it a couple of times actually, because the yarn's not that hot yet. It's better. Okay. Thank you. And now I'm going to turn the bag inside out. Just have a look at that and see what that looks like with the bag turned the right way. Now you can see that the corners, when you don't have that big bunch of fabric, you can get a much nicer, sharper corner. The next stage of this, I'm going to hem the top of it. I'm going to fold it over like this and fold it over again like this. So you've got a little opening showing at the top there. I hope you can see that. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just put the yarn back on and I'll iron it closed so that you can see that a little bit more easily. Probably easier to do than just by doing it by hand. Thank you. Go back again. Just turning over about 1 centimetre or even a little bit less all the way around and ironing it down. Helps like just to kind of crease it first with your thumb like that. Makes it a bit easier. To fold it over. So that's the first turn. The second, as you can see that's done now. The second turn goes over one more time, but it's a bit further down. It goes to there like that. So you've still got the opening showing on this side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin that down. A lot of people again, they would want to use a ruler maybe. I just fold it over, make it look about the same all the way around like that. Hold it down, press it with my hands. It's this is just a nice little bag. It's not, it doesn't have to be all be done perfectly, so even just done fairly closely to the right line will be fine. Okay, you can see that the seam is open, flat there. Okay, and then you've got your little opening there. The next thing I'm going to do is, I've got 2 layers of stitching to do. Usually I start at the seam, and you're just going to sew along this edge here. Make sure that what's underneath isn't getting caught. No. So that's the first one done. The next row of sewing is going to be just on this edge here. You can see how that opens up there. We want to join those together. So I'll just show you how I'm going to do that. Just makes it a little bit nicer when you do your ribbon, when you thread your ribbon. So hold these together and sew over the gap. And then you're going all the way round, just a little way away. Okay. Check there's no loose threads around. That's what you'll end up with. Now I'm going to show you how to thread the ribbons through, so you have a nice drawstring top. You could, if you wanted to, and I probably will later, do a few hand sewn stitches over these bits here just to close them a little bit more, but for now I'll leave it because it will work fine. I'll show you the ribbon and we can do that a bit later. So you'll need, for the ribbon, you'll need a safety pin and a piece of ribbon. Probably, I've got about 2 meters here. It's going to be a little bit more than I need, but at the same time you don't want to go short. You can always cut it shorter. Take a piece of ribbon and cut it in half. So 2 separate pieces. And we'll do as we did before, we'll just cut the ends of the ribbon, angle the end of the ribbon, and that stops the ribbon from fraying. So these ribbons are going to go in 2 different directions. One is going to go this way and one is going to go that way, so you can pull them together. Take the first piece and put in the safety pin and start at this side. That's what your little opening is for. And feed the ribbon by pulling the safety pin through all the way round. Obviously you need to make sure that the ribbon you have is not too wide for the space. This one fits nicely. Needs a little bit of room to move around inside so that it's not really tight in there. But any ribbon that you would like to use when you come to this bit, just travel across. getting caught up in there. There we go. And pull your ribbon through. Take off this. And what I would do now, put those two pieces together and tie a little knot like that, just to make sure that it doesn't fall out again. So that's your first one. Now we're going to do the second one. This second ribbon travels in the opposite direction. So if this is poking out this way, you start at this side. You're going to have another ribbon sticking out here. Now this is always a fiddly bit because you need to get it to go between those two layers inside. That's it. Pull it through. Take off your safety pin. Pull the ribbon right through, and again, as we did before, tie a knot to bring those two pieces together. Then you have these two lovely ribbons sticking out either side, and to close the bag, you simply pull it like that. Makes a lovely little overnight bag or a PJ bag, scraps bag, whatever you'd like. So that's how to do the applique bag. I hope you like it. And there's loads of options with the kinds of designs that you use. I go for things like hearts and flowers. Think they work really well because everybody loves those kinds of patterns. But you could do anything. For your first project, keep your pattern really simple. Decide whatever design is going to be and keep the pattern shapes really simple. But this method of applying fabric to fabric is almost foolproof. Okay, thanks very much. I'll see you again. Take care.